Good afternoon and welcome to the Arts Commission meeting of Thursday, March 7th, 2024. I now call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. exactly. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to ask no, you're not a chair, Commissioner Ashendorf, Commissioner Ashendorf to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please. All right, and next we are going to open for public comments, and then Commission will have time for their questions and comments.
Chair Wondercheck, we just have to take roll call real quick.
All right, let's go back and take roll call.
Commissioner Mann. Commissioner Ashendorf.
Present.
Commissioner Derderian.
Present.
Commissioner Lucia. Commissioner Ochoa.
Present.
Vice Chair Zuckerman. Chair Wondercheck.
Present.
We have quorum with Commissioner Lucia, Mann, and Vice Chair Zuckerman absent.
Okay, so next we are going to have opening public comments, and then the Commission will have the time for their questions and comments. Each member of the public will be given a total of 3 minutes to speak, and first we'll take comments from those in the council chambers, then those on Zoom. We will only have one time period for each group. There will be no going back and forth. Members of the public in the chambers, now it's time to speak, and please line up on either side of the aisle. Okay, and you are welcome to speak. Oh, I will turn on your mic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, thank you for serving. I really appreciate it. Looks like we're missing a couple, so attendance is important. I'm Jim Fitzpatrick, a proud East Side resident of the great city of Costa Mesa. I'm a former chairman of the Planning Commission, so I did sit on the dais. I know what it takes to sit up there and what a commitment it is, so thanks again for serving. What I enjoy most about this commission is the good that it does. Just the visual elements within the city are just awesome. And I came here tonight to tell you a story, make a recommendation, and seek your action. Here's my story. Once upon a time, the city developed an ordinance, and the voters approved it overwhelmingly. Not often 2 out of 3 of us in this city agree on everything, but they did on this. And the voter approved the ballot initiative that would generate meaningful tax revenues, and a portion would go to the arts. What if I told you that number is likely to be in fiscal 23-24, $160,000? Would I have your attention? Would you be excited about that? Well, what if I told you staff hasn't done the necessary work to tell you about it, to track it? I've been reading your agendas, and not once has the cannabis tax been on your agenda. So not only do you not know about it or how much it is, but there's no process to allocate these precious resources. Think about through your agendas. I want to be in your heads as you think about, what if I had $160,000 for my ideas? So, does that upset you? I hope it does. On Tuesday night, I couldn't get public records requests from taxes from the city. They wouldn't give it to me. But the mayor did. And on Tuesday night, he said that July through January, 1.1 has been collected. In November, 190,000, and projected a meaningful $2.3 million. That's $32 million in revenue and $160,000 to the arts, $160,000 to first-time home buyers, and staff hasn't been tracking it, hasn't been doing this. All they've been doing is negative on cannabis. So let's see. During your commissioner comments, I hope each and every one of you say, staff, what, is this true? Why haven't we seen this, right? We have a full-time employee dedicated to the arts. Please direct the staff to bring it back by the next meeting. Why haven't we seen this? How much is it? What is the process for us to allocate it so you can do the great work that this commission has done? This is a commission, not a committee. This is a decision-making body, right? You have the ability to do that. So I'll be waiting here for comments, and I hope each and every one of you will champion this in your comments. Thanks again for all you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Angel Correa. I'm a proud, long-life Costa Mesa resident. I'm also a board member, a part of the board of the directors at the Costa Mesa Playhouse over on Hamilton Street, next to Rhea Elementary. Some of you joined us last year when the with when the Playhouse participated in the city's Art Crawl event. Thank you for including us. And speaking of the arts, I just wanted to personally invite you to our upcoming production of Yasmin Riza's Tony Award-winning play, Art, which goes very well with the City of the Arts. The Playhouse has been trying to obtain rights for the show for more than 5 years, so we are really excited to finally be putting it up. I'm going to be one of the actors performing in the show, as well as 2 of our other board members. The show runs from March 22nd through April 14th, Fridays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m. There are 2 Pay What You Will performances. One is on Friday, March 22nd, and the other is on Thursday, April the 4th. And I would like to offer you some little postcards so you could keep as a little reminder, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you very much. Now, if there are members of the public in the chambers, oh, we've already done that. We'd like to hear from the public via Zoom. So if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand option on your screen. If you are joining the meeting on your phone and would like to speak, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 when prompted to begin speaking. Ms. Fatua, is anyone on Zoom who would like to speak?
Chair Wondercheck, there are currently no Zoom members.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe at this time, if no one else is speaking, public comments are now closed, and we will move on to the commissioners' comments. Commissioners, if you have any questions for our staff or comments pertaining to the agenda items or anything that was mentioned, please add your name to the queue. Would anyone like to speak at this time? Oh.
I'm trying to push the button, but I haven't been in the seat for a long time.
Okay.
Oh, the easy one.
Yeah.
Thank you for your help, Chair Wondercheck. I appreciate that. I have a few comments I'd like to make. First and foremost, I am really excited to acknowledge that the city is spending some time and energy with Costa Mesa Encore, a designated 1 page in the Costa Mesa Senior Center newsletter. There are some great things coming the month of March. This is our first time doing this, and there's everything from candle painting to some theater and symphony. And atrapasoles, is that correct, Alma? I think that's the word. It's sun catchers. They're going to be making sun catchers. So art is going to be much more incorporated into the senior center, and I'm really excited to see that finally occur. Next, I had a comment. There was some conversation a couple of city council meetings ago about the Sister City program, and I know that we were the city was very involved with the city's sister city in Australia many years ago. I don't know where it stands today, but I was hoping staff would consider looking at that program and seeing if we could incorporate the arts in the Sister City program. I think it'd be really fun for our artists and their artists to have some kind of exchange. Third, I'd like to mention that Commissioner Derderian and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a Costa Mesa resident, Amelia Painter, who was inquiring about the process of some kind of network for our artists. And to that end, we were able to offer some suggestions, and you'll hear some comments later from Commissioner Derderian. But she asked me to share that they are launching the Costa Mesa Artist Guild to provide a platform for artists to network and to provide education for them. And their home is going to be at the Costa Mesa Women's Club. So hopefully, we can support them and assist wherever they need us in the future. Also, I'd like to share that visiting a couple of the local coffee shops, there's something going on that's really exciting. It's called a Trail of Art. And people use our coffee shops, which we have more than 24 here, and they bring their sketch pads or they're doing work. But now they're doing some artwork and they're putting it on the bulletin boards at the coffee shops and inviting people who are there to take a piece of artwork or to leave one. So next time you're at Moon Goat in particular, have a look for the Trail of Art. And finally, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Fitzpatrick for coming this evening. I did receive your email. I've had a chance to look it over, and I do hope that staff in the future will bring that up before the dais, before us in a future meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Ashendorf. I did have a quick question regarding the Artist Guild. When are they meeting at the Women's Club in Costa Mesa?
That hasn't been established yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's going to happen? Okay. All right. Any other commissioners? Go right ahead.
I recently saw a retrospective of pioneering performance artist Barbara T. Smith at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. And I noticed in some of her archival material that was exhibited a letter. And it included her address, which at the time was on 17th Street in Costa Mesa. And I was so excited to discover this information about an artist I admired and imagine how wonderful it would be to have some kind of record of that in our city. And perhaps the possibility of uncovering more information in art history.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair Wondercheck. To follow up on Commissioner Ashendorf's remarks, we had a wonderful conversation with Amelia, and there's some very wonderful things happening there. Alongside that, one of the efforts that is afoot that I've been in conversation with Commissioner Ashendorf with is a Arts Alliance for the City of Costa Mesa. And potentially looking at using resources that were fundraised from the Cultural Arts Committee in the past. And so hopefully sometime in the coming months and meetings, there will be something that comes before the Arts Commission to discuss that more formally. But that is something in the works to be aware of. I will mention I have purchased the domain name cityofthearts.org. So we can toy with that and have fun. And to the first gentleman's public comments, I thank you for coming here and making us aware of this and bringing this point up and concur with Commissioner Ashendorf's request to hear more about this at the next meeting if possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the old business, which would be the minutes, approval of the minutes. Are there any questions from the commission? No? Okay, are there any members of the public who would wish to speak on this item?
There are currently no members.
Okay, public comments are now closed. Do we have a motion for the minutes from our last session?
You may now vote on your dais. Motion carries 4-0 to approve the minutes of February 1st, 2024 meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our next order of business, of old business, is the approval of the utility box art program. Let me click on. It was recommended that the Arts Commission review the proposed public art donation policy, and I wanted to find out if there was any questions from the commission regarding that?
Currently, Chair Wondercheck, we're currently on just the old business art, box art program. So we're just evaluating, approving or reviewing 2 new redesigns for sponsorship boxes.
Okay.
Do you want me to step in? I'll give a brief description.
Yes.
So old business, just a little refresher. We had the sponsorship boxes from the Segerstrom Center for the Arts last meeting. There was comments about how it looked more like graphic design instead of art. And so we did ask them to redesign and bring those back. And so these are the 2 new designs to discuss, review, and approve or not approve, or however you'd like to go about it.
May I speak? Okay. With this new artwork, specifically from Segerstrom Center of the Arts, it still feels more like an ad as opposed to art. And I'm not sure if that's something that we would need to discuss, or obviously the floor is open for this type of discussion, but according to the standard for the boxes, I believe 20% of the box can be more about the company that is sponsoring the box. And this, to me, just feels more like it's an ad as opposed to art. So please, anyone else who would like to have any comments or recommendations, please speak.
Chair Wondercheck, I would concur on the second one. I think, to me, the first one embodies the movement and all of the opportunities. It kind of integrates all of the arts. But I do see I do see that we're looking still more like an advertisement for the Center of the Arts with the second one.
Just to weigh in here too, I saw these and was quite pleased with them. I thought they were both fine. I didn't have any major issues. I see both previous points about the sort of advertising nature of the 2. But I think Commissioner Ashendorf is right. At least with the first one, there is some sort of art focus, and okay, it's not drawn or anything like this, I guess, but there's something there. And the second one, I mean, there is architecture. That's what I'll say, and maybe that's about 2/3 of it, maybe 3/4 of it. There's a nice prominent picture of the founding chairman. Fine enough. I'm ambivalent on these 2. I think this is far and above better than what was previously submitted. So if there is a preference for seeing something done about the second one, I think that's reasonable. But at the same time, I think both look quite good and wouldn't be necessarily eyesores on the street or look immature or lacking.
I guess I'll weigh in on this since there's only 4 of us. Yeah. I concur with what Commissioner Dadarian said. I think these are definitely steps in the right direction. I think they're a big improvement to what we saw at the last meeting. I'm not sure how much critiquing needs to happen for sponsor boxes, but I do see everyone's point. And
so before we have any additional comments as a commission, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
There are currently no Zoom members or in-person
Okay.
members.
So with what we've just discussed, is the item that's on the floor at this point, is it that we would keep both pieces of art, or would we focus on the first as far as that being approved, and the second one we would just ask that they would go ahead and resubmit, or what is it that we would like to propose?
I would just like to ask staff a question before we move forward, and that is, how do you see the box being, the lower image being wrapped? sounds odd, but are we going to have a face on one whole side and then two buildings on the other side? I mean, how is that going to appear?
Yes, so we do have two vendors that do this, so they kind of work on the placement, but based on this design, because it's so long, it does seem like it would just kind of wrap all the way around. So it would seem like, yes, on the side there'd be buildings, but it could, there could be a repetitive piece in there somewhere, because each box is shaped a little bit differently too, so they kind of have to do some maneuvering to get the design to look the best on the box. So our vendors do that. But yeah, I mean, we could give suggestions for sure.
And I think, it's probably pretty challenging because this is a graphic designer and an artist, and so he has a different, approach to the design.
I guess my only concern, Chair Wondercheck and other commissioners, is how are we setting a precedent? So you have someone who has left a legacy of the arts for us, or someone who is a donor, and that person's face is prominent. Is that something, is that a step that we want to take? I'm just asking your thoughts on that, that's all.
No, it's a really valid point, and something to consider. Sigerstrom is everywhere, and as we're looking ahead and the things that we want to build for our city, what steps do we take?
If I may interject, if the commission would like to. If you want to make suggestions on positioning, on the artwork, we can definitely take note of that and incorporate that into the artist's design and discuss that. That's definitely something that we can do. We take direction from you. You can provide what you would suggest, and then we could either come back with that. I know that the item in question is a second design, correct? So we can take feedback tonight and come back and work with the artists and the company that will be doing the wrap. Do you see any, are we under time restrictions for that?
The only thing we're trying to do is get them done by the end of the fiscal year. So we're okay. So what I could do, if you would like to see it like as a mock-up, I have asked each vendor to provide mock-ups this year before they put the wraps on. So we could do that and have them, show you all the mock-up at it.
So what we can do tonight is get your feedback as far as the second design goes, and then come back with a mock-up that also incorporates your additional input.
Okay, so then let's make a motion to approve of the first ad or the first design, and this is what was mentioned. The second one, we will just request a mock-up of the second one.
Now, do you have any specific input outside of the placement of the photo and the rest of the art, the architecture?
Chair Wondercheck, I've given it some thought. A couple things come to mind. When you're standing in where that picture is, you have a magnificent fountain that is, and you also have the famous sculpture that you can stand in the middle of and make noises and look up to the sky. You also have some very exclusive statues and art in public places in the center. So there might be some way to bring some other ideas into the image. Just my thoughts on the...
I concur with that for sure, to show more of the art. This architecture is art with the buildings, but yes, to see more of the actual, what is it, more of the, what did you just state? More of the different designs that are art on the site would be beautiful to see as well. Absolutely.
I was just going to say to Commissioner Ashendorf's point, I think perhaps the issue is a strong word, but one of the objections possibly to that second image is that this is on the street, excuse me, and a part of the cityscape, and so to feature architecture on the street, amongst other architecture, might be a strange juxtaposition within this specific context. So to the point that was made, I think if there were certain artistic features, of course is it the Firebird? If I'm getting that correct, there, these sorts of things that are emblematic of the Segerstrom Center that everyone will, of course, associate with it. Without, saying, okay, here's just another building to look at in front of other buildings on the street as you're driving and walking by. That might be a profitable direction for them.
Okay.
Great, this is all great feedback, and we'll take note of it and work with the artist and bring back an item with the mock-up.
Just for clarity, just want to make sure I'm on the same page. So the first design is okay, right? And then the second we'll bring back with some alterations.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion on that, or? Okay, so at this time, do we have a motion? For what was
Yes, let me
discussed?
just make adjustments. Oh, okay.
To accept the image number 1.
And are we doing both at the same time? So we want to accept utility box number 1 and for utility box number 2 to come back for the next commission meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
That's even better. Thank you.
You may now vote on your dais. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. So our next order of business will be the Art Venture Guidelines. Did I skip something?
Public art will be.
The next order of business is,
Public art donation policy.
thank you, Public Art Donation Policy. And it's recommended that the Arts Commission review the proposed public art donation policy, which is in attachment 1. Let me go to that.
Yes, and I believe we have a staff report, and Laura will present that.
Yes, so I can give kind of a preview or an overview of what this document is and kind of what next steps are for this document. So the public art donation policy, there's a couple things to note on this report for this policy for the city of Costa Mesa. This is just a draft format, which I'd like you all to look at for in review. So currently the city of Costa Mesa doesn't have a public art fund or any designated money for maintenance for public art. So the donation policy that I created, kind of looking at some of the examples that I also provided, allows for donations, but with a process that puts kind of the financial obligation onto the donor at this time, since we don't have a public art fund. So the document also creates steps for approval that would go through appropriate city channels, the Arts Commission, the city manager's office, and city council if we choose to move forward with this. So another thing to note is the example that was provided. I provided the city of San Francisco because they have a moratorium on a donation, so that's also an option if we want to just kind of put, wait on that and see what happens. But I just wanted you to see all these different examples of cities that are already kind of have these policies in place and are doing this work already. And so I think with that in mind, and we could review examples, and I'd love to hear suggestions and opinions about this policy.
Are there any questions right now from the commission regarding the public art policy, donation policy? Or any members who would like to speak?
I have a few questions. Regarding the donation criteria on page 2, should we consider a limit on the valuation of donated artworks? I noticed in one of the samples you provided, there was a limit to a work that's valuated at $50,000. And I'm wondering if that's something that we should consider as well, especially since the valuation impacts the insurance, maintenance. So that's my first question.
We can put that in there if you'd like to put like a limit to the, is that what you're asking? Like if we put like a limit in there, like how much something's worth? Like we wouldn't accept something that's more than $50,000?
I think that, yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, yes. Excuse me, I can definitely put that in there for sure.
But if anyone else has any suggestions about the valuation numbers. Thank you, Laurette, for including that line about the bond and endowment fund for the maintenance. I think that's really important. I appreciate that detail. The other question I had was for the retention policy on 5F, item 5F. It says exposure to natural elements, which is a big issue here in Southern California, especially our proximity to the ocean. I was wondering if there was like a timeline or lifespan, especially thinking about how intense the California sun is here, and the corrosive factors of being near salt water. It's just something to pay attention to, or if anyone else has input.
I think, that's a good point, but I think that if we accepted donations, once you have a contract in place, it would be at the city's discretion to remove it as they'd like. So we could kind of evaluate based on, sight and scene, and then decide if it's something that's, needs to be moved because it's not, as beautiful anymore, So there would be legal language in place if we were to accept donated artwork moving forward, that we would have the right to move it or, store it somewhere. Yeah.
Any other questions from the commission? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Laurette, thank you. I really appreciate, because I'm a process learner, slow but sure, and this has been very intentional. You take us through each of the policies one step at a time and have us learn and expand our minds that way. So I appreciate that part of wrapping our heads around the master plan. I also appreciated the fact that your 3 examples do include framework and the law and this moratorium. But I don't understand the moratorium, or as I understand it, it's because they don't have space currently for storage of anything. And is that how are we to interpret that, incorporating here as well?
So my thought process, if we were to just kind of put a halt, would just be because we don't currently have a funding source for maintenance. And I think space would also be an issue moving forward. Like, I'm not getting, a lot of crazy requests for this right now, but when I started a couple years ago, I think we did get like a couple and within the month that I started, and I was just like, I didn't know what to do with them. So, so there's just a bunch of considerations with it. I think, ideally, we'd want to have money to maintain these things annually, so we don't have that now. Okay. So that would just, we'd have to, if we were, and that's kind of why when I created this policy document, even if, we decide to have this policy, the financial piece does come back to the donor because, again, we don't have those funds. Got it.
Okay. That helps. The other. The next comment is on page 1 of the policy statement. I really appreciate seeing encouraging or facilitating the recognition of the artistic community. We have to always make sure that it's not just about the art, but also the artist. So having that in the statement is really important. If you go down to definitions, you reference a professional certified evaluation, and I think that's on page 9 of your application. Who bears the cost of the appraisal?
In this case, it would be the donor. So when they
Okay.
fill out the application, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. And then I think it was the LA proposal where there was this little column on the side with little check boxes, if I recall. And on page 3, donation review and approval process, you mentioned required attachments. And would that include any images or renderings or some kind of budget as well? Is that just like understood that that will be part of the responsibility of the applicant?
Yes, and I may have just forgot to put that in the
Okay, no,
application, so I'm so sorry.
No, just, I thought it was valuable to say that, so, okay. I have no other comments at this time.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Yes.
Right ahead.
So just following on the line of questioning or discussion around limits on appraisal worths and these sorts of things, if an individual were to donate a piece, would it be tax deductible to the city? Or would it have to go through like an intermediary 501c3? How does that work, do we know?
Because a donation would have to go through a contract process and through the legal process, that probably would be determined at that time. Because there's a lot of stipulations, probably individualized per art piece, because not every one is the same. Laurette and I actually a while back had the opportunity to meet with the chief counsel at the Norton Simon Museum, who went over, they have a large private collection piece. They own all their art, but oftentimes because it's such a popular museum, it's the one that you pass on the Rose Parade. When people pass away, a lot of people have art, they will leave their art to the Norton Simon Museum, and they go through a very rigorous process per piece to even decide if they are going to accept it. Because in people's estates, just because they leave it to a museum or they leave it to a city doesn't mean that they have to accept it, and it would be piece by piece, so everything would be individualized. So yes and no, maybe, so.
Okay. But if they were to donate it, it would be a tax deductible.
And just to add to that, we would definitely work with our legal team and our finance director to make that determination, and we would include it into the policy.
Okay. I was just curious on that, and having to do with the limits to the amount. You could imagine situations in which perhaps an individual might, have an overly high appraisal, which would then also obviously affect the city in various ways, given insurance costs and everything like that. Okay, well, that was just one question. I think it was great, Laurette. Really, really pleased with the overall document. Really, I have to just say, given my background, love the aesthetic standards, the high aesthetic standards, and aesthetic excellence. These are the phrases that warmed my heart. But then looking at the definitions of aesthetics, I actually saw this, I think maybe in the city of Austin, so I see where it was kind of pulled from. But just definitionally, coming from my philosophical background, I have to take issue with the second clause or the second part of the definition, because, we're saying essentially we're going to include non-artistic factors in evaluating artistic merit. And so, that's fine if we want to add perhaps the criterion in the next section, taking into context or taking into consideration those kind of relative contextual significances of the art piece. But I just have to, stand firm on these definitions and say aesthetics should just simply be artistic merit of the work of art, rather than including the consideration of these other factors and significances. So I'll put that forth. I don't know if anyone has comments or thoughts on that. Forgive me for being so pedantic in this. And then I also wanted to just ask, looking at section 3, in A, there's the goals of the art collection, which is underlined. I looked through the permanent public art policy that we approved at the last meeting. I wasn't sure if I saw anything about that, so I was just curious. I wanted to ask if we have something outlined there, if that was something that was forthcoming at a future point, but wanted to ask that.
So we did, I'll have to look at the document again, I'll pull it up in a sec, but we did go through criteria for permanent public art and, what we would want to see in the city. So there was a list, so I can definitely find it and send it your way.
And then I was just curious on 3F, which is the next page, page 3. The last one, it says the artwork supports an equitable collection inventory. What exactly do we mean by that? I'm not sure exactly what to take it. I understand, of course, the interest in having a diverse range of artists, and obviously, if perhaps someone decided to make Costa Mesa, the city, let's say, of Fisher Derderian's art, and not that there's anything of note, eventually you'd say, well, that's enough. We don't need any more. Thanks, Fisher. But I was just curious, how we are to understand that sort of phrasing.
So I did take that directly from another document, but I would say that's kind of up to us. So equitable for the city of Costa Mesa could mean, we're addressing, yeah, all of our, sorry, I was looking for the word, the districts, yeah.
Different ethnicities.
Yes, yes, different ethnicities coming from different districts, like we're covering different parts of Costa Mesa. Yeah. So it really could be something that you all define if you'd like, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, all right, those are just my questions. I was curious on all those various factors.
Actually, I have a couple more.
Oh, go ahead, please. Commissioner Ochoa.
Thank you. On page 7, the artwork information, it looks great. I had a question, maybe we could include like a line for a fabricator, if that's applicable, especially in contemporary art practices. Oftentimes, industrial fabricators are employed to fulfill the vision of the artist, and having that information might be handy, especially for maintenance. The other point I wanted to highlight was on page 8, the artwork history, and I would recommend some kind of documentation in addition to the list that the donor provides. The documentation may be in the form of original sales invoice or a certificate of authenticity. In the news last year, there was a big fraud expose about this guy who made these Basquiats. So, anyways, that's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
And Commissioner Ochoa, also on page 9, it does say on number 5, please attach copies of current written appraisal, bill of sale, so that, I could make that more clear too, if we'd like.
Thanks, Laura.
Okay, these were excellent comments. Are there any members of the public who would wish to speak on this particular item at this time?
No.
Okay, public comments are now closed. And do we have a motion? And at this point, the motion would be to make further revisions to this particular policy. So I would like to make the motion that revisions would be made. And again, I do have to thank Lorette in the midst of all this for all of the work that she put into this. So our motion would be that revisions would be made and we would go ahead and bring that to the next commission meeting. Is there a second? All right. Call for the question. Can we vote?
Yes, one moment.
Oh. Nothing's coming through. Oh. All right, let's vote. Have we all voted?
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And the next order of business is the Art Venture Guidelines.
Thank you, Chair Wondercheck. So the Art Venture Guidelines. So the attachment for this agenda item is in kind of an excerpt of what a larger packet document would be for the Art Venture application process. I'm really trying to work on this for this juried art exhibition every year. So the larger document I'm thinking of making with this information would be something similar to the OC Fair example that I have attached to this. And it would include more administrative items like the photo sizing, artwork pickup and drop off, and other information. But for this portion I presented tonight, it represents mainly what I'd like us to discuss is it represents the categories of artwork for cash awards, and then the region we pull from for the juried art show. So in the past 2 years I've done this program, we've done surveys every year, and so people give feedback and have questions, and I feel like the most questions I get are based around how we select the categories and then the region. So I wanted to bring this back to the Arts Commission to kind of weigh in on and what your preferences might be. And in this document, the categories I put in there are just what we have used in the past, but happy to change those around and have a discussion about that.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Chair. First of all, Lorette, we did have Art Venture during COVID. It was a virtual, some of us struggled through that, didn't we, Ashley? I think that was missed. That was a very painful Art Venture. But be that as it may, I wanted to ask you, because when you look, just before I address what you're asking for, on the page 1 of the submission guidelines, when I was there, it seemed like people were complaining, or no, they were questioning placement of their art. So I think having us say display and location are determined, and making sure that the artist understands that, because they say, why wasn't I put in this room? My artwork, needs to be there. So making that very clear. I don't know if it was clear last year. Okay, but that really helps. And did we have diptychs, triptychs, or two-dimensionals in separate categories last year? In other words, if my piece of artwork was actually a triptych, I couldn't submit the 3 of them. It would only be 2 of them, and they would be separate. Is that how it is?
So last year I only had one that was like a grouping of 3, and we accepted it just as, I think we put it in the mixed media because it was like a collage kind of poetry piece. So we don't get a lot of them, and so the thing about Art Venture is that it is a smaller show than the OC Fair, just to be aware. Like OC Fair is massive, and so their categories may, that may influence how we move forward with our show versus OC Fair.
Right.
But I don't get a lot, and I think I think some of these categories we did for the last couple of years were based on like kind of how many pieces we got for things, and we were trying to kind of combine, fiber art, 3D art, and mixed media, and maybe we have a digital art. We just were trying to figure that out based on the amount.
It's good to see it there. I mean, again, anything we can do to eliminate negative feedback is always important. Also, you have youth art category for the 10 to 17-year-olds, and the submission deadline is September 1st. And so I assume you're going to move. We're going to move quickly on this because, at least in Newport Mesa, school ends June 6th, and school's back to school August 19th. And so if we can get this through our channels to tell the art teachers as quickly as possible that we need their student art throughout Southern California, that will make sure that we have good representation.
Commissioner Ashendorf, actually, I think that was an accident on my part. I did have it bumped earlier. So the submission
okay.
for all would be the same. So
Okay.
I was thinking, and we're still working out the dates for when we're
Right.
going to open the call for artists for this show. But I was tentatively thinking a June opening and then a closing in July of the application
Thank you.
process
Okay.
for all, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Do you have any other questions, commissioners?
Everything looks good to me. I just had a question about for the artificial intelligence one. I mean, is there any way for us to really know, or is this just more like a don't do it kind of warning? Fair enough. All right. That's what I figured. I was just curious. All right. That's it.
Commissioner Ochoa?
Yeah, this looks great, Laura. I think, I know we discussed the categories before, but I thought, there were some really great representations last art venture, and, the people that won from those categories were ecstatic. And it's great that we're moving the date to June, so we can get more youth art applicants in.
I would have just one quick comment, and maybe this is something that can be added. With the award categories, is it possible to put what the award amount is next to each of those items?
Thank you, Chair Wondercheck. Yes, and when I put it up on the website, I put the amounts, so they'll be up there. So, and last year we did People's Choice for 500, and then the rest of the adult categories were 400, and then the youth was 200.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And let's see, are there any questions from the public that would wish to speak on this item?
There are currently no members.
Okay, public comments are now closed. All right, I believe at this point that this particular item is up for a motion to pass, correct? Okay, is there a second for this motion?
You may vote on your dais. Motion carries 4-0 to approve Art Venture guidelines.
Thank you. Okay, well, the next order of business is the monthly reports of arts and culture, staff reports. So we will turn this to Ms. Laurette at this point in time.
Thank you, Chair Wondercheck. So I have a kind of brief one again this month. The Arts Grant Program application is closing next week, so we're doing a little social media push. In total, we'll have 4 complete applications. And so moving forward with this program, I'm planning to reach out and select 2 arts commissioners to be on the review panel, and then create a kind of calendar to rotate arts commissioners on and off some of these review panels and subcommittees that may come in the future. So what I'll do is I'll reach out to a couple of you, and then of course, if you're not available for this opportunity, you can pass it and we can kind of, but I'll make a kind of consistent calendar so everyone kind of gets an option. So I just wanted to kind of let you all know that. And so I'll be reaching out probably next week after the application closes. And then the Poet Laureate program, I set some flyers out for all of you for that new program. The launch and the application is opening next week. So I've begun some community outreach and have some social media posts ready to go out on, I think the city one posted one today, the city social media. And so we'll be posting to the Parks and Community Services accounts, in the city newsletter that goes out every Friday. I have paper flyers going out to city facilities. I'll be doing some email blasts next week and a Costa Mesa Minute or with CMTV, or I'll designate that to someone to do. So we have that in the works, and we're really excited for that program. It's new, and we'll see how it goes. And it seems like so far with the social media posts that there was some interest and some shares. So it's good. It's a good start, I think. So. And then the utility box art program. So in the next couple months, you should start seeing some of those new designs pop up. We have 2 vendors working on placement around the city. We're also currently working on the QR codes for each design box. We plan to kind of link directly to websites when we have them for artists, or Instagram accounts. Those will be our number 1 and 2. And then if artists don't have either of those, what we'll do is we'll link it back to the Google Map. Because the Google Map does have short little bios and the year of the design, the title of the artwork in there too. So I just wanted to update you all on the QR codes. And then, let me see, I do have a budget slide too. Let me pull it up. So we have begun budget season for 24-25. I just wanted to bring up the master plan with the amounts. Sorry, it kind of died for me. Okay, so this is from the master plan. So I just wanted to kind of get you all looking at this again, and I've circled just the amounts that we asked that it, for the funding plan basically for this plan. And we've asked for all these things, so I just wanted to let you all know, and we'll let you all know when a budget meeting comes. I think last year it was May. So, and that's it for my report for this month. So thank you all so much for your feedback this evening, and we'll see you next month.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Yes, please. On the budget, Lorette, is there going to be a time, since that budget takes us through, I believe, 2025, so will there be a point at which we will be looking at what we've accomplished, where we have been, and what we're going to be doing over the course of the next several years?
I'll take the first stab at that. But yes, we have begun talking about what the future looks beyond the Arts and Culture Master Plan, or I would say original. We've began discussions on maybe what an update to the master plan looks like, and how we would move forward with that. So we're in the very early on discussions of that, but as soon as we come to a decision and find some solutions, we'll be keeping you guys in the loop and hopefully bringing something to you guys in the near future.
Yeah, and to add to that, once we undergo the budget process, we can bring back an item to the commission to report out on the items that have been funded. I did want to make a comment. I know that during public comment, the cannabis revenue was brought up. The arts do get 0.5% of that. And in the last couple fiscal years, there's been a shortfall in that revenue. The revenue has been projected quite high, but it hasn't been coming in at that rate. So the city council has authorized the city manager to cover those shortfalls through general fund, which we did this last fiscal year, and for the previous years as well. So funding will continue to be available, and we'll use the master plan as a guiding, blueprint, and we'll be happy to bring an item back to you so you report back on the budget items that were approved.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
There are no members.
Okay, public comments are now closed. At this time, are there any additional comments by the commission or staff? No comments from the commission or staff. Thank you very much. Well, I would like to now adjourn the meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be on April 4th. Our meeting now is adjourned at 6:58 p.m. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful evening.
If we can also